Hi, Ashley. Welcome to the Genetic Genius Podcast. I am so excited to have you as a guest today and talk about your new book. Whoop, whoop. Yay. So
Thank you so much,
welcome.
Dr. Lulu. So happy to be here. We're going to have such a fun time.
I know. Yay. Me too. So before we dive deep into our conversation about feeling and healing, let's hear about you and your story so that the listeners can get to know you a little bit better.
Absolutely. I'll start with like where I am now, but I can also bring you to that moment to how I got there because it's been quite the long journey. Right now, I am an author. I just wrote this book, Authentic Power, Give Yourself Permission to Feel, which is all about my healing story. And today I am a vibrant, healthy, authentically living mom, wife, spirit, soul who gives myself permission to feel on a daily basis. And I have healed so much of my life, trauma because of that. But before, I'm also an entrepreneur too, and a creative and a writer. And by tapping into my authentic power, it really, I would say my creative juices have really flowed in the past couple of years. But I would say, 7 years ago, I was a completely different person than the one I am today. Completely different. So that to tell that story, I have to start from the very beginning, which is when I was a child. And I experienced a very traumatic incident that changed the course of my life forever. And I grew up in a military family. My father was an Army colonel, very loving, supportive parents. My mom was an entrepreneur and dancer. Dad was deployed a lot, but was my rock. And I was born in Schweinfurt, Germany, lived in California, moved to DC. My dad worked at the Pentagon. And when I was 11 years old, we were all watching a family movie one night. He wasn't feeling well. And he went upstairs to bed and I tucked him in that night. I was like, okay, I'll tuck dad in. And I remember saying, I love you, dad. And he said, I love you too, honey. And those were the last two words that we ever spoke to each other. Right after he began suffering what we later found out was a heart attack. It was a sudden death heart attack. And my mom and sister, my younger sister, who was 9 at the time, and I was 11, my mom, sister, and I did everything we could to save his life. My sister and my mom tag team CPR on him. I ran to call 911. I ran out to get the neighbors. And then after that, as many people who experience trauma can relate to this, I really just blacked out. And I remember just then suddenly being in the hospital in this beautiful pink room, and my family members started showing up, and I was sitting by my sister waiting for mom and dad, and my mom came. It was just my mom came into the room with my aunt, my dad's sister, and she was like, dad's in heaven, he passed away. Yeah. And that changed the course of my life. For me, being 11-year-old, that traumatic event, I put all of the guilt on me. Like I didn't do enough to save his life. So I had guilt, shame, grief, you name it. I had it, but I didn't want to give myself permission to feel it. It was way, way too hard. Yeah. What was easier, and this is what happens to a lot of people, is just I buried those feelings of trauma, of grief, of guilt, of shame, and I didn't want to feel them. So I just carried on with my life. I didn't talk about my dad. I remember as I got older, I had friends in middle school and high school, and they would come over and they would not know where my dad was. I never mentioned anything. They didn't think he was dead because I would not even tell them. I wouldn't visit his grave site. It was just kind of a blip I didn't want to face the fact that he died. But when you bury these uncomfortable feelings, what happens to a lot of people, and this is what happened to me, is that of course they have to be released. So they came out in other ways. Right. They came out in people pleasing. I had a complete lack of boundaries. All I wanted to do was be well liked. So I was like a chameleon, and I molded for people just to win their approval. I had very destructive relationships, and later in college, just a destructive relationship with alcohol. And then even after, I was a journalist working in New York City, destructive relationship with work addiction, all these things that I was doing, these addictions, was just to numb myself out from feeling the pain that I felt. And I always say, like, I was an Oscar-worthy actress acting like everything was fine. And on paper, it looked like everything was fine. In high school, I was secretary of my class. I was an editor of yearbook. I was captain of my dance team. In college, I was president of my sorority, editor of the school newspaper. Looked like I had my act together. But like I said, I was an incredible actress. Inside, I was dying. I was lonely. Like I would never want to get still with myself and actually allow myself to feel. So I lived like this until my early 30s when another health crisis hit me over the head. And this started with just, at first it started, I thought it was a flu. It was a stomach bug. Happily married. I had 2 babies at the time. I want to say, gosh, maybe 4 and 2 or 4 and 1. And it was this stomach bug that would not go away. And it developed into a chronic illness where like my body would go completely numb. I would have fainting spells, dizzy, vertigo, couldn't eat anything, lost so much weight. And then when I got pregnant again during this time. And when I was pregnant, and this is what happens when you're pregnant with many chronic illnesses, your immune system goes quiet. So I thought I was okay again. And I was like, oh, whatever, that was
gone now.
Okay, I'm fine now. And then the day I delivered my 3rd baby, every single symptom came back times 100. I'll never forget being in the hospital. My blood pressure dropped to dangerous levels. I was vomiting. They sent me home a couple days later and it just deteriorated. It got worse. I started having panic attacks. I couldn't get out of bed. So it got to the point where I was completely bedridden with this newborn baby and 2 kids, so sick that my husband had to take the kids to his parents. I spent a lot of days at my mom's just to have my mom care for me because I was so sick. And of course, during that time, I had seen so many doctors, and being a journalist, I had a book this thick. I had a feeling what I thought I had, but of course, everyone wrote me off. Oh, you're just a mom with 3 kids. You have stress.
You'll feel better.
You'll feel better. And I knew in my heart that was not what it was. So at that same time during this period, because I was having daily panic attacks and chronic depression, borderline suicidal thoughts, that I was diagnosed with severe postpartum depression and anxiety. And I was put in a part-time mental health hospitalization program to help address that, which it did help, but it didn't help the physical symptoms. Those physical symptoms kept happening. And it was after it was 30th doctor. It was my mother-in-law who was like, just try one more. And I was like, at that point, it was like, okay, I'm just entertaining my loved ones.
Right.
So I'll go for you and I'll bring my husband with me because I just need a witness to see what I experience when I go to doctor's offices, and it just completely written off. But this doctor, Dr. Soni, actually listened to me, and I like went through my list of symptoms. And at that point I was 100, I'm 5'7". I was almost 100 pounds. It was so unhealthy. I was a barely functioning human being. And she looked at me and she was like, okay, I think you have Lyme disease. And I was like, I know, that's what I've been trying to tell people the whole time. I think it's Lyme disease. And she's okay, well, we're going to treat you oral antibiotics. And if those work, you're so far gone, we're going to have to get you a PICC line. And the antibiotics started working. And so then we got a PICC line. And because I had a baby at the time, I couldn't lift anything heavier than 15 or 20 pounds. So we moved in with my in-laws. I was only supposed to have a PICC line for 2 weeks. It stayed in for 8 weeks.
Wow.
And my husband became my nurse. We had an at-home nurse come and change the dressing once a week. My husband administered the IV antibiotics daily. But it was in that time when I was like in that just period of despair and healing and just bedridden, was the first time in my life that I actually got quiet and still. And what I found was that when I got quiet and still, I could hear whispers of my soul, of my essence, of my being, and what I call my authentic power, which is what I call the wisdom that I have within me, and entrusting that wisdom. And I was grieving for my health. So I allowed myself to cry for the first time ever. And then when that happened, I felt myself grieving for my father. And he had died 25 years ago at that point. And I was like, oh my God, where is this coming from? I miss my dad so much. And I just let myself feel through those emotions for the first time ever. And it's no surprise to me now that as I continued to allow myself to feel, to allow myself to get quiet and still, that I started to heal. It was not just the physical symptoms was 20% of the healing that needed to happen. What I discovered was the actual real healing was 80% up to me, my spirituality, moving through trauma allowing myself and giving myself permission to feel. I went through this for an entire year and I gained my health back. But as I gained my health back, it was like I was a caterpillar wrapped in a cocoon, ready to birth into a butterfly. And so when I say that I'm a completely different person today than I was 2017, those 7 years, 2015, those 7 years ago, it's because I have completely transformed my life and healed my life because I've given myself permission to feel. So I'm going to stop myself there. But that is a little bit about my healing story.
Wow. Oh my gosh. What an amazing story. Thank you for sharing that. And you can feel, just you telling it, can feel the emotion behind it, right? Like how powerful it was for you in that journey. And your story is so relatable to many of my patients and listeners that are in that state of chronic disease, especially like Lyme disease can be so debilitating. And to be able to have that emotional component, I think that you talked about, be clear for people to hear, because I talk about it all the time. It's relatable. And I think that is the power that, like you said, that authentic power, just the title of your book, just relatable, and also just the feeling that comes behind it. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. And what I learned was that I was always looking for outside approval and also thinking that one doctor was going to be that God to me.
Right.
And I was going to have that one doctor to heal my life. But what I found was that when I got quiet and still and started listening within and hearing that voice and that calling and asking myself powerful questions, what is it that I need in this moment now? That I learned that I was actually the expert of my own life and that I already had the answers the entire time. I just thought I needed to get them from somewhere else. And that is just not the case for anyone. The reason why I wrote this book was, it was in March of 2020 when all of these feelings, these uncomfortable feelings started bubbling up again. The pandemics had just started. Fear, anxiety, despair, grief, having lost friends, a grief for my children's loss of education when there was no school. But this time around, I didn't bury my feelings. I was like, all right, Ashley, I've got this. I'm going to move through them. I got on my yoga mat every single morning and I just let myself sob. And I'm not saying you need to get on a yoga mat, however you need it to look, to just allow yourself to move through and process feelings. But then it was like, as I allowed myself to do that, I felt called to write about it too, because my fear was that we're going to exit out of this pandemic. Hopefully, we'll exit out of it. And we will have been through a 2-year long collective trauma where we have not faced our feelings that we've experienced.
Right.
And my fear is that these feelings that we've buried, if you've buried them these past 2 years, will come out it will physically manifest themselves in other ways and maybe triggered by, so for me, I believe that Lyme disease triggered the chronic illness in me. Like somebody else could have been bitten by a tick and probably maybe they've been fine. But me, it triggered everything that I had been burying within me. So I don't want that to be people. And that's why I wrote this book, because there is a way to move through and process your feelings in a healthy way so you don't get sick later down the line.
Right. Yes. Which is so important. And I love what you talked about, because that was one of the things I wanted to ask you about, is that suppression. When we stuff down those feelings, it can manifest into all kinds of emotional trauma, physical symptoms. It's like you're like, oh, I'll just bury it and put like little roses over the top of it. And so it always looks good from the outside.
Yeah.
But when we suppress that, it sounds like from your story and your book as well, it actually backfires.
It completely backfires. And I didn't have the awareness of that it was like me getting Lyme disease was the universe's wake up call. Like, Ashley,
like, hello,
pay attention. Yeah. It was like, I feel like, and if you believe in whatever you believe in, God, the divine, the universe, it was the universe's wake up call to me. And I think the universe was like, Ashley needs she's not going to stop unless she's physically stopped in her tracks.
And some people are like that. You have to be like in your bed and have to like, can't do anything else to be able to go inward.
Literally nothing. And when I did go inward, at first it was very scary. And at first it was like 30 seconds. Oh, what's that feeling? And then I allowed myself to go longer and longer. And then just giving myself permission to feel was this beautiful release. And I've learned that all emotions are here for a reason. In the same way that we experience joy and elation and love, we are meant as human beings, and this is what I believe, we are meant as human beings to experience anger, sadness, grief, and maybe shame and guilt. And what I've learned is that we need to get curious about these emotions. They're an indicator that we need to pay attention to. And so now I see emotions. I've completely reframed how I look at emotions. It's a mindset thing. I see these uncomfortable feelings as messengers and as teachers.
Right.
And so if you can see these feelings, grief, guilt, despair, any negative or what you would define as an uncomfortable emotion, and you look at them differently and get curious about them, that's when true healing and transformation happens. That's exactly what happened for me.
Yeah, that's so true. I love that what you said about the emotional. It's like the emotional set point, right? You have this place when you're in the state of joy or happiness or love, when you have that negative emotion, it's almost like that word, I think, is that piece that you're talking about too. It's like we have negative and positive emotions. It's an emotion. But when you have a contrast in that emotions, you can actually see, oh, when I have that emotion, my whole life is changing. I'm experiencing this, but I don't have to live in it. I don't have to embrace it with every soul of my being. I can move out through it into another space and time.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great point, because I want to differentiate. I'm not saying wallow in your emotions. Like I've done that. I know what that feels like, especially going through postpartum depression. The first thing I'll say is like, one, get professional help. If you are having depressive thoughts, anxiety, talk to your doctor about it. But at the same time, get some help, which I did, and that helped. But at the same time, I allowed myself to get still, quiet, and started asking myself some powerful questions. What might this grief mean? Oh, okay. Like, I'm really missing my dad. I need to give myself permission to move through this because I never did. And I actually learned a lot by going through, I had a life coach. Her name is Julie Riesler, and I interviewed her in the book, and I've interviewed a bunch of experts in the book. And she's the person who really taught me about how we are our experts in our own lives. And I loved this life coaching program so much that I actually went through it and became a life coach myself, because I felt so called to teach others. Like for me, like learning that I was the expert of my own life was the biggest wake up call for me. We're not told that. And we're advertised like this magic elixir, this medicine, this everything, it's all going to fix you. And so the first mindset that I went off in my healing journey was, I'm looking for that medicine, that magic doctor to fix me. And what I learned was that there's no one size fits all approach to healing, especially when it comes to emotional and spiritual healing. And if you're having physical symptoms of something, it's likely you also need emotional and spiritual healing at the same time. That's what I've learned, at least.
Yeah, that's so true. You can't separate them. And I talk about that all the time in my patients. You have to have the whole package. We're a whole being. We don't have to, like on the shelf, our physical self, we can just take it off and look at it, the emotional self and look at it. We have to look at the whole picture. And I think that, like you said, that emotional component, that trauma is 95%, maybe even 99% of the healing journey. And until we address that emotional component, we'll never never get better. I see that with my patients. It's like if they're not like, I'm not really going to do that work. I'm like, okay, that's okay. But we're not going to move through this illness we will, but maybe at a really slow pace, like inch by inch.
But what's interesting, Dr. Lulu, is we're not taught that. And like, I write about this in my book, that I thought after my dad died, I needed to wear a mask of strength. which I did. Being the daughter of an Army colonel, you're told your entire life that you are so strong. You know, my maiden name was Baird. So it's like, you're Baird. You are so strong. You are brave. You are tough. And so I felt that I needed to be stoic, but and this is no fault to my mom or anyone who helped raise me. This is just society and culture telling us like, yeah, you're brave, you're so strong. Actually, the irony of this is that the original title of my book was Not So Strong. And because what the message that I want to give to people is that you don't need, have you ever had days where you're like, you feel like you have to put on this mask of strength, but you're feeling anything but. And I also say in my book, there's like a old saying, fake it until you make it, which I actually think I don't believe in, because I think that it's to fake how you're feeling is detrimental to your well-being. Exactly. So I say that in society and culture, we have been taught to be brave, to be strong, to put on that mask of strength, to be actors in our own lives. And that comes at a cost to your health and well-being as well. By having authentic and vulnerable conversations like the ones that we're having today and the ones that you have on your podcast, that is where true healing and transformation can happen.
So true. Oh my God, I love it. And when we embrace that real, like authentic part of ourselves, where it's like you said, you had that, you're not even the same person. And I think that's what I see so many in my patients. They have this chronic illness and they're living it every moment. They're like, they've embraced it. They've labeled it. They're like, every moment of my life is going to be this chronic disease. And until they like, oh, like you said too, that you're the one that has the answers. And when I tell that to my patients too, I'm just the vessel. I'm just helping you to see all the different avenues on your health journey so that you can experience it. But I'm not going to be the person that heals you. That's not what my job is in the health field. I can help you discover that within yourself.
And I think it's so hard for people to do because, and I'll say this, like when I first had Lyme disease, I was like, oh, there's a label. Thank God.
Yeah. And that can be affirming in some way, right? You're like, yeah.
But I also was like, I am not going to let this define me.
Right. That's the difference.
And there's a big difference. And I remember joining, like I was looking for so many, like one of my chapters is connection through healing and just lean into the power of connecting with others to heal. And I remember joining a Lyme disease support group and I felt like it was like, I got in and I was like, this is going to be great. We're going to like give each other like tips and like really support each other.
High five.
And it was not that at all. It was just endless complaints of symptoms. And I was like, no, I like, if this works for you, great. But I felt I wanted to be around people who had healed themselves from Lyme disease. And that was like my request. I was like, anyone if you know anyone who is healed from Lyme disease and postpartum depression, I want to talk to them. I want to know what works. And this is the journalist in me, like getting curious. And so I actually exited that group. And I say in my book, if you are making connections, because I feel like connecting is so powerful for healing, but it's also okay to find connections that don't work for you and don't be in that energy. Everyone's on their own journey. So it's okay to leave something that's not serving you. And so I started looking at my illness. Lyme disease is, first of all, I was not defined by it. I tapped into some people will say woo woo, but I got very into the law of attraction. And I would wake up every day, even if I was physically feeling sick, I'd be like, I'm healthy. I'm healthy. There are things in my life I am grateful for. I have my children are healthy. And I'm healthy, I'm healed. And I looked at it that way and I connected with people who had healed. And that just changed my mindset, being in their energy. And that's just one component of my healing journey. So I would say if any one of your listeners are suffering from a chronic illness, if you approach this illness as a teacher and with a growth mindset and look to others who have healed themselves and connect with them, you will get a lot of ideas. I promise you. And again, like I said, there's no one size fits all. There is surely no magic elixir to healing. It's all within you. So once you connect with your authentic self, do that. But then afterwards, if you connect with your authentic self with others and do so in a vulnerable way, again, healing and transformation.
Oh, that's so true. And I love that you brought that up about the affirmations in your book, because I think that's such a fun piece, that one, that you have the affirmations, and then two, that you have the journaling sections for people to really dive in. So it has a little bit of a workbook feel to it, but not 100%, but it allows the listeners or the readers to really feel like, oh, okay, you explained this XYZ, and now I can work through it, which is so important.
It's so true. And so for me, another big part of tapping into my wisdom and authentic power was journaling. And I've always been a writer and I've loved writing, but like the imposter syndrome person in me is, you're no good, you can't do it, whatever, I'm just going to start journaling. And I did. And it was like I would just write whatever I wanted on paper,
like free flow.
It was just, yeah, free flow. And actually it was one of my spiritual mentors, Leanne Taylor. She wrote this incredible book, The Fragile Face of God. She's featured in my book. She taught me the art of sacred writing, which is essentially where you ask yourself a question. What do I need to feel supported today? How is my heart doing today? And you just free flow and write it. And you would be surprised the answers that you can get just by letting like these words come out without editing yourself. And I will say this, because I've hosted journaling workshops, and people are, if you're a beginner, come with a beginner's mind. If you're like, I don't even know what to say, like, don't edit yourself, because we're so worried about somebody reading it or being judged.
Right.
This is for you. Like these journals are for you. And some people are like, I don't want people to read it. And so I say, okay, have a ceremony and burn it. Yeah, exactly. But I will say that there is so much healing power in the written word, and you can learn so much about yourself through journaling. And journaling I do every day. Like, I'm looking at my desk right now. I've got 3 journals over here, 1 journal over here, and it's just a way for me to quickly throughout the day tap into myself and tap into my authentic power by asking myself powerful questions.
That's so true. I do that every day myself and recommend it to my patients, because when you're in that place, and I did this really fun exercise when I was working with a spiritual mentor myself, where he asked me to do exercises with free flow with my left hand, or my non-dominant hand. Ooh. Which was really fun, because then you're like, you totally take yourself out of that brain, that ego, because you're just like, okay, whatever comes through here, I can't judge myself, and I'll try to reread it later. So that might be a fun
That's
one.
a great idea. I haven't tried that. Well, thank you for giving me something to journal today with my left hand.
Now you can try that out. So one of the affirmations I really loved in your book, it talks about the aspect of it only being temporary. And I'd love for you to talk about that, because I think that's important for people to understand, is when you're in that deep place of trauma, or whether it's physical healing, whatever, what is that temporary place, and how do we shift out of it?
I am so glad you brought that up, because this is something, like, if I had one message to share with anyone experiencing a chronic illness, it would be to tell yourself this is a temporary moment. I used to think, and the reason why I didn't want to move through my feelings was because I thought, I had this belief that if I allowed myself to feel, it would last forever. If I really allowed myself to feel this pain, it would not ever go away. And that's not true. And what I learned by going through my healing journey is that everything in life is temporary. Those happy moments, those joyful moments, the moments of elation are temporary, in the same way that sadness and grief is temporary. And if you've ever lost someone, that grief is fickle and it's a dance. It comes up some days, and there's some days when I still feel loss of my father and I allow myself to cry. But it's a temporary moment. And once I learned that and believed it, which in my heart, I know and believe now, this is temporary. That gives you so much freedom and helps you give yourself permission to feel these feelings. If you're going to start moving through your feelings, start by saying, I'm going to let this happen, but this is temporary. It's not going to last forever. I'm going to learn from this, and I'm going to love that emotion back. And that kind of goes into my feel framework too, which is how I taught myself how to move through my emotions.
Thank you for addressing that, because it's really important for people to understand that component, because I think they have the fear, like you said, it's just, if I feel that, I'm going to be stuck in it. I'm never going to be able to get out of it. But we have the yin and the yang, the free flow of life. Like, we have ups and downs. If we were always in this constant state of never feeling the opposite side of things, we would have no perspective.
That's exactly right. And that is why it's so important to see these negative emotions as teachers and offering a different perspective. It can even give you gratitude too. I love that you said the yin and yang. It is the flow of life. And I was never taught about the flow of life. Like, I had to teach myself through self-education, not from a parent, not from a teacher. And I wish our kids were taught this in school. I think there's much more focus on it now, thankfully, than in the 90s when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But it's just something that I would love to see more of in our society, and change starts with us. So I feel like my book hopefully is helping change the heart of one reader at a time. And I've done my work if I'm able to do that.
Yeah. And I think we will see an evolution in the school industry because of the pandemic too. I think it's shifting already, and we're going to see people are just they're not happy. They're not satisfied. And especially now with the online education, parents are like, this is not going to be good for my kids.
Nope.
Nope. Can you imagine? I was watching this, I don't know, it was an interview recently, and the high school kids had to spend 8 hours during the day, like in a school classroom. I was like, that would kill me. Who wouldn't that kill? That would kill your heart and soul. You would just be like, you have no connection to your fellow classmates, no connection to the teacher. And then you're just staring at this screen. You can't express your emotions. So I think that's going to be pivotal in the next phase of education, even though we're just figuring it out. But I think it will see some shifts happening, hopefully.
I agree.
Fingers crossed.
I agree. And fingers crossed. I'm definitely starting to see, because we did virtual learning for my kids for a year and a half. And I was like, okay, in the same way I give myself permission to feel, I need to let my kids do the same. So I do think it starts with the home. And I'm not saying I have all the right or wrong answers, but I make sure my kids have a safe space to feel. Like, if they're crying, I don't say stop crying. And that's something that in society we've taught, don't cry. Like, as a military kid, I was taught to be seen and not heard, not to express emotions. And I'm raising my kids completely differently now. Like, we have a feeling chart on the refrigerator, and Scarlett, my 6-year-old, who's learning how to access her own emotions, and she to me sometimes, I say, point to how you're feeling. Like, show me you want to circle it, and then she circles it, or she draws a picture. As a mom, I'm trying to find creative ways for my kids to give themselves permission to feel. And when they're angry and they're kicking, as long as they're not kicking each other, I say, hey, let it out. That's okay, girl. Like, I hear you're angry, and you do that, or she'll feel like punching the air. And I'm like, do it, girl, get it out. And I think that's just how I've decided to take control of raising my children in a way that lets them feel safe for expressing their emotions. Because I do think in society, it just still doesn't feel safe yet.
Yeah. And that's important, I think, for that self-expression, especially for kids growing up now, because it's going to be very different for them moving forward. And they're going to have to be able to express all the crap that they had to go through the past 2 years, and either whether they didn't have a prom or they didn't graduate or whatever. I'm sure there's all kinds of feelings, but I love that what you said about having emotional chart in the refrigerator. And you don't have to use that just as a kid. You could use that as an adult too.
I use it as an adult too. Yeah. They ask me, they're like, Mom, which feeling do you feel right now? And I'm honest with them. I'm like, this one or tired or shy, and it's been a great conversation starter for us at home. And it's just something I also wish was addressed a little bit more in school too. And like you said, I think it's starting to happen, but I also think that there's a lot of kids. My belief is that kids don't feel completely safe to express themselves.
Right. Yeah, cool. That's totally true. So
we're
true.
Getting there, though.
Yeah, we're getting there one step at a time. Totally.
Yep.
So, and I think that's a great segue. I wanted to talk about, you have a chapter about primal meltdowns in your book. So let's talk about that, because I think that's a great, emotional chart.
Yes.
So okay. I'm release those pent up emotions. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm so glad you asked about the primal emotions. So I actually learned these from Dr. Jamie Hope, and she is an expert that I interviewed for my book, and she's an ER doctor in Detroit. And we were talking about stressing hard and stressing soft, and how as humans, we're primal beings. Like, we are meant to scream, we're meant to laugh, we're meant to cry. But again, like in society, we suppress these emotions. So she suggested what she calls a hard and soft stress toolkit. So everyone should have one. And I have at the end of that chapter, I'm like, okay, put together your hard and stress soft toolkits. And so what are some ways that we can stress hard? Jamie taught me something called dish therapy. Have you ever heard of
No, I saw it in your book, but I can't wait for you to talk about it.
Okay. So full disclaimer, I haven't tried it yet. I have a stack of dishes like right here ready to go. But when Dr. Hope told me about it, she was like, it is the most satisfying thing I've ever done. So what you're supposed to do is get a bunch of like old dishes that you don't use, or go to like wherever, yard sale, and grab some old dishes. Get a trash bin. And then if you have like neighbors, like you might want to tell your neighbors or your loved ones, like, hey, I'm doing dish therapy today. And you put some glasses on, make sure it's safe. And then you just smash those dishes in that trash can.
I love it.
It's the most satisfying thing. And now, like, I actually had a girlfriend tell me last week, there's starting to be smash rooms that are popping up where it's just like a bunch of junk that you can take a bat and hit. And I'm so excited to go. But that's just such a great way to release these primal emotions, to hit them, to throw. Dr. Hope also mentioned something called a damn it doll, which is essentially like a doll you get on Amazon. And when you're angry and you're like, oh, I feel like I need to hit something, you take your damn it doll and you whack it against your bed, or you can just take a pillow. Or what else is like better for me, I love screaming. When I am upset or angry, screaming is the most satisfying thing. But I've also found this, even if I'm not upset or angry and I scream, like I just let out a scream, it is the most satisfying release you will ever feel. And again, like, just warm your family. Hey, I'm going to let out my scream. And it's profoundly healing. So those are some ways to stress hard. Now you can also stress soft. So what are some ways for me? I stress soft by moving through breath work. I've gone through several breath work courses that I absolutely love. The Art of Living is one program. Their Sky breath work is favorite forms of breath work to just help calm my nervous system. Also meditation. I use the app Insight Timer every day. I meditate multiple times a day, but definitely once in the morning, once in the evening, and then take little breaks throughout the day. And journaling. So these are just some ways that I can stress hard and soft. And so what I recommend for folks is to create a list of, because we forget in those moments of stress what we need to be doing. And if you have your list in front of you or somewhere that you can pull on it, you're like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. When I was going through Lyme disease, I actually had my list of, at the time, I didn't call them a hard and stress soft toolkit. I called it my coping technique. And I put them on, I created this page of like beautiful markers and colors. And I had all my coping techniques on there. And just to remind me that in those moments of panic is one example, because I had encephalitis of my brain. So I was like having all these panic attacks of Lyme disease. So when I was going through it, I would look on my fridge and I would remind myself, like, okay, there's things I could do. I can take a bath. I can get outside in nature. I can watch a ballet. I can listen to classical music. I can take a nap. And just having that daily reminder right on my refrigerator. So I went to my refrigerator because it was my reminder at the time. I was so thin, like I could eat too. And some people, I say, put them on your mirrors, but anywhere you can have it visible, I find is like such a helpful reminder, because in these moments of stress and anger, we forget what we need to be doing to support ourselves.
Yeah, that's so important. I love that, because we do need to know when we're in that state of the sympathetic nervous system is so charged up, we forget, because we just don't have the brain capacity or power. And if you have it right in front of you, like, oh yeah. Or like you said, if you're doing meditation as a routine, you're like, oh yeah, I know that when I do that meditation, I can just totally get back in my body. And I think that's really important, especially in that chronic disease state, because you need to have those simple, easy tools where you're able to have a sense of relief, immediate relief.
Exactly. And we forget that there's so many easy relief tools. And like I said, I keep saying there's no one size fits all. So what works for me is probably not going to work for you, but it's at least going to jumpstart some ideas of what could work for you to help calm your nervous system.
Right. And yeah, health and healing is very individualized, but then there's also the group dynamic, right? So it's like you have the one tool can help one person, and we'll talk about, hopefully we'll have time to talk about the community connection of healing, which I love that part about your book. But it's so true, when you have this place where you're in this place of healing, it can help the others around you because you're in this different state too. You're just like, oh,
Yes.
I'm relaxed.
Yep.
People around me are relaxed. I can help
Yep.
them. I'm in a joyful state. People around me are joyful. So we can shift to others around us.
It's so true. That's why I love yoga so much personally, is because I just love being in that energy of others where we're all coming from places of stress and busy days. But when we come together as one to collect our breath and breathe together and move through, I use yoga to move through a lot of emotions, move through life together and movements and breath. It feels like we're one. And that's a really cool feeling.
Yeah. Oh, totally. And let's shift our conversation and talk about your feel framework, because I want to make sure we have time to talk about it. And let's talk about what it is. How do we use it to process, to tap into our own authentic power? And how can the listeners then use that 4-step process for that physical and emotional healing?
Yeah, I'm thank you for asking this question, because this is how I taught myself to feel, because it's very scary. And like, I even hosted a workshop last week where I was teaching the feel framework, and a lot of the feedback I got was like, this is really scary. This is very scary to do. And I acknowledge that. I acknowledge that giving yourself permission to feel is scary. So start
Yeah,
so
don't take
so
on the
first,
massive mountain, right?
yeah, don't take, that's what I said. Don't, like, if you got 25 years of trauma build up like I did, let's start with a baby step. What's a feeling that's coming up for you right now? And maybe it's like frustration with work as opposed to
wearing your mask.
Yeah, the 25 years of suppressed trauma. But so here's how I taught myself. So first is focus on that emotion. Feel where it's showing up in your body, because often we don't realize this, but like our shoulders are tense.
Right.
There's something, there's a reason. Maybe you feel it in your chest. So for me, often I would get an upset stomach, I would get headaches. Focus on what that is. Now, sometimes you also can't identify that emotion. You're just like, I don't know what I'm feeling. I
Could
just
be all over.
And that's also okay. It's okay if you can't identify that emotion. Just focus on that. Get pause. And this can be done in a couple different ways. And this is how I do it. Really, it can be done any way you'd like. But I would recommend just getting still and quiet. It can be done in a meditation. You can journal through this, which I think is helpful. You can take a nature walk through this. Sometimes I've done the feel framework on my yoga mat. So it's just wherever you can give yourself a couple minutes to just sit with yourself. So focus. And then the next is enter within that emotion. This is what people don't do. We never, like, this is like, society doesn't teach us to enter and really move through the emotions, but give yourself permission to enter this emotion. What does that look like? If you're feeling anger, let yourself feel that anger. Where are you tense? Let that happen. So then the next is experience that emotion. So this can look like anything. This can look like screaming, like sighing, throwing that dish, like getting that damn it doll, like letting it out. And it doesn't need to be in a physical way. This could also be breathing, crying, laughing. Just notice whatever comes up. It's so interesting. I think of Reiki, which is an ancient form of energy healing that I've gone through. And I was getting a Reiki treatment one day, and out of nowhere, I had given myself permission. I was like, all right, whatever comes up. I just burst out laughing so hard. I started crying. And my Reiki master was like, this is good. This is energy that needs to be released in you. And so celebrate that. So whatever comes up, celebrate that. That's what the experience part is. And this can be for a minute. This can be for 10 minutes. This can be for 30 minutes. This can be for 30 seconds. It's as ever long as you're because it's all about giving yourself permission.
Right.
So as long as you're giving yourself permission to do it, you can do it for as long as you like. And again, it's not about sitting and wallowing in it. It's about really letting yourself feel. And then finally, it's listen to that emotion. What is it here to teach you? And then I say, learn from that, listen and learn, and then love that emotion back. In the same way that we're grateful for happiness and joy and love and laughter, I am grateful for all of my emotions. It's like that yin and yang that you said, the flow of life. I am grateful for anger. It's a teacher to me. I'm grateful for my grief. It is also a teacher to me. It is a reminder that I was so deeply and profoundly loved by my father and had this incredible relationship with him that a lot of people don't get with their dads. And so it's just such beautiful indicators and reminders that we're living beings, we're here, and we're flowing with the yin and yang of life.
Oh, wow. I love that feel framework. I can't wait to try it out and practice some.
Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, I'll tag you. Find a great one to work on. So many. And that's really important, I think, because, and so I like what you said too about you don't start with something like that's really traumatic. Start simple and then be able to experience what that feels like and then work up into a bigger place, because you don't want all that. If you have a tube that has been really tight, you don't want to open up at one moment, like the floodgates coming out. You need to like slowly work through the process. And that's healing in general. You can't be like overnight, ding.
Well, it's so true. It's like, you're so right, Dr. Lulu. I'm a runner, so I equate it to, you don't start by running a marathon. I started by running literally 5 minutes and stopping.
Yeah.
And so like that, it's just, and what I've learned about healing is that healing is baby steps. It's baby steps every single day. It's going easy on yourself, giving yourself so much kindness and compassion. And it's about, I have a turtle here. I'm going to show you.
I love turtles.
My daughter drew this turtle. And this is my reminder to go slow and take those baby steps, because healing never happens overnight. Processing your feelings, especially the big ones, those traumatic events, will never happen through one session with the feel framework. And in full transparency, I'm still moving through the trauma from my childhood.
Yeah.
I've gotten so far. I used to never be able to talk about it with anybody. And now look at me. I'm telling the story of it.
Yeah, now you wrote a book about it for everybody.
And I wrote a book about it. I have come so far, but that took a lot of work and a lot of moving through feelings to actually get there.
Yeah. And that's really important what you said too. It is a process, and we want to love the process. As humans, we're like, you're like, oh yeah, I just want to be like from A to B in a second. But if we don't have the road in between, that's the joy of our living, because we can look back your healing journey. You can look back and say, look at how much I've, grown to become. If you just all of a sudden went from 7 years ago to like in a quick moment to now, you wouldn't have experienced it. You wouldn't have all those memories, all the learning. You wouldn't be able to write the book. So we don't want to rush the process.
Yeah. Don't rush the process and enjoy the journey. It's because that is, I have so many, I feel like running is very similar. Like when I run, and I was running this morning, and it can be hard. It is challenging.
Yeah.
But I also, when I was running today, I was like, Ashley, this is a journey. Enjoy this. Like you are like moving. I was moving through what was uncomfortable and tiring, and I wanted to quit. I wanted to stop, but I just kept going because I wanted to just enjoy the journey. I allowed myself to enjoy it. So giving yourself permission to enjoy this journey, or at least experience the journey, is the first place to start.
Yeah. Experience it. And that's what our life is about, the experience. And I'm not saying that someone in a chronic disease state needs to experience it for a long period of time. That's not what I'm saying. So if you're listening out there, you're like, oh, I'm going to have this chronic disease like Lyme disease forever. No, it's about the healing journey, experiencing that part of it. And like you said, like having different modalities, whatever, and learning that journey for yourself. And that's the real part of life. You can't write it off. As we're wrapping up today, could you talk about the community aspect that you talk about in your book? Just because I think that's really important. And also with the pandemic, do you think that we've seen like a change, like we've suffered in our community, or we've strengthened in our community connection? How is that going to shift forward? And what relationships can we now shift in that part of that healing community? Does that make sense? I know that's a lot of questions.
Yes, I think I understand what you're saying. And here's what I'll say. When I was going through my illness in the beginning stages, I was adamant that I was going to be going through this. And I didn't want to tell anyone. I didn't want to share this with anyone. I even kept working and didn't even tell any of my clients what was happening. I didn't open up. And it was like I was doing it all over again. I was wearing that mask again, acting like everything was fine on the outside. So it was just old patterns happening again.
Yeah.
But then when I started giving myself permission to feel, when I started accessing journaling, I listened to some of my authentic power again, which is the wisdom that we all have within us. And I felt called to tell a couple of my girlfriends that were like very close high school girlfriends. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. And I opened up to them, and I was just met with so much love and compassion and understanding. And I was very surprised. And I think I had shielded that side of me that was suffering and pain for so long that I was not expecting this kind of response. So then I said, okay, this is helping me. I'm feeling like I want to connect with others about this. So I joined my church choir, and I did this when I was so sick, but I just felt called to sing because for me, again, this is one of my coping things. It might not work for you, but singing worked for me. I used to sing in middle school and high school, and I lost myself and stopped. And I was like, you know what? If I can't move or do anything, I can at least sing. And so I joined a bunch of other people who loved to sing with me, and they all knew what I was experiencing, and they were there for me. But at the same time, we just sung beautiful hymns together, and that in itself was healing. And I found that once I got more open and vulnerable about my truth and where I was, that my connections with my current family and friends deepened, and people started opening up to me more in a much deeper level. And then I met so many more people. It opened up the doors for even more healing connections of people I'd never met before. But once I got honest and vulnerable with my truth, and I was like, this is where I'm at in my life. I'm healing. I'm on this journey. I've got this growth mindset. People got curious, wanted to like go on for the ride with me too. And so now I feel like in many ways, like I've become a teacher, and I also see my friends and family and everyone else's, we're all teaching each other. So there's just, what I learned is that there's so much in connection. And I do consider myself, like, I'm a publicist by day. So I'm a connection activist.
Right.
And I am, because I have seen the power of connecting with others from your vulnerable, truest, self to really just deepen on an even spiritual level. So yes, that long answer to your question.
No, that was great. And I think it's like what you said, that connection piece is 100% important for healing, because when you have that healing within yourself and you're working with a community, or not working, but when you're experiencing it with friends and family community and being honest from your true self, you can mountains move. You can see so much change, and it helps other people, because like we said in the very beginning, that relatable piece is really important for healing.
Yep. It's so true. So beautiful.
Okay, Ashley, I think we could talk for a really long time, but I want to be aware of your time and the listeners too. So let's wrap things up today. We have one last question, and then we also have a fun giveaway we're going to talk about. But first, how can people find you? Where can they find you, follow you, and purchase your book?
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much, Dr. Lulu. So you can visit, here's my book, Authentic Power, Give Yourself. It's now an award-winning book. It won a gold award last week, which I was so like, I never thought I'd have an award-winning book, but here I am. And you can learn all about my book and my journey by visiting my website, Ashley, ASHLEY, Bernardi, BERNARDI.com. And that's where you can get all the social media, everything, and find links to purchase the book. So I'd say just visit my website.
Perfect. Okay, that's easy. We'll put that in the show notes. And then we'll also put in the special giveaway. So when you direct message Ashley will pick, you'll get a copy of the book. So that's going to be our giveaway on the day the podcast is released. Today, if you're listening and you missed it, you can still follow Ashley and get a copy of the book.
Amazing.
Yay.
Yes, I'm so excited and would love to hear from you, and would love to hear how the interview resonated with you as well.
Yay. Okay. One last question. If you had an unlimited budget right now, what would you do to make the biggest impact on the planet?
Oh my gosh. I've thought about this a lot. I would host, and I think I'm going to do this one day, I would host journaling workshops everywhere. Like, I want people to, like, the best way for me to tap into my authentic power has been through the power of writing. And I would just create journaling workshops within different communities. And hopefully that would jumpstart healing around the world.
Oh, I love it. And that's super easy to do. Ding. Yeah. It's great to have something that's really easy. And for people, I love journaling. I do it every day. And it's like funny if I get into a funk where I'm like, oh, I didn't journal. I'm like, what happened? Wasn't like in the vibe. I just wasn't in the rhythm. And so for me, it's like super important about my daily like practice. And I spend an hour like in my own spiritual practice, journaling and connecting. And if I don't do that, I'm just not, I feel like I was like missed a day.
Yeah, I feel the same. And that's what I want. I want that for everyone. And I even think even if I didn't have all the money in the world, I'm still going to do this like for free. I'm going to figure a way out. But that's what I felt called to do recently.
Well, it would be super fun because you could take aspects from your book and have that as being part of the journaling. You can totally do that. Yeah. So that's going to be super fun. I can't wait to see it formulate. Well, thanks again, Ashley, for coming and being a guest on the show today. I loved our conversation and I can't wait to share it with the world.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lulu. It has been such a pleasure.